Alright, welcome to another draft physics presentation. Probably. With any luck at all. Comment video. That's all I got time for lately, but it's okay. There's one troll who just has lots of energy, so at least it's something. And if you could just make the arguments, this would be so much more enjoyable. But instead he has to do all this bullshit satire and mush thrown in. Just a waste of neurological space instead of just making an honest argument. Okay. You honestly can't be this fucking stupid. So, again, why? Because I don't understand the point you're making. I'm just clearly saying I don't understand where the conflict in anything I said. You haven't shown me how my two statements conflict with each other. All you've done is imply things that I didn't say. Your argument about the bending starlight, well, see, you don't even understand my argument because you think it implies something that wasn't stated in the argument. Applies to each star individually. So what? The sky is not made of each star individually. The sky is made of a bunch of stars. The stars are not equally bright. What does that have to do with it? It's not going to help one, okay? Doesn't matter how bright it is. If it's behind the sun and the light is lensed and we see it, it doesn't have anything to do with its brightness. And they're not equally spaced out. Well, again, what does that have to do with the argument? Nothing. Doesn't change anything. Doesn't mean anything. So the photon number isn't guaranteed to be conserved. Well, again, you're saying how far they're spaced from each other has something to do with the fact that when the light is bent, it means that some stars that you would see, you don't see, and then stars you do see, you don't, that you wouldn't see, you do see, and that you see the stars in the wrong position. How does it change any of that? Oh, that's right, it doesn't change any of it. Doesn't matter what their spacing is. It just doesn't make any sense. So the photon number isn't guaranteed to be conserved by your idiotic logic. Well, I'm saying, as far as I can figure, it has to be conserved, except for the fact that the object that causing the gravity consumes some percentage, a larger percentage than its shadow, its actual shadow. It's eating more photons than its actual shadow. So the universe is a little darker because of it. So the photon number, okay, there's no guarantee some other star can be pulled out of your ass. I'm not pulling them out of my ass. I'm just saying the laws of averages. There's millions of stars, idiot. So what? It's like flipping a coin. It's going to be pretty close to 50-50 after a million flips, idiot. Law of averages and such. In the circumstance, or that it would be equally bright or equally close to you. So again, how does brightness or how close they are have anything to do with this conversation? Where have I made conflicting statements? You again haven't pointed out how I made conflicting statements. There are none. This is just extremely basic visualization. What does that even mean? What's your theory? Your theory is that if two observers, there's an observer on Jupiter and there's an observer on Earth, that if they both look at an object that's lensing, one of them's going to see more stars than the other one's going to see? I don't think so. I think you'd have to give me a reason why there would be any difference. They'd see a different universe, but they wouldn't see more or less of the universe. Okay, it's actually stunning how it only takes 1 second of thought to counter his idiotic bullshit. So again, they haven't pointed out where the bullshit is at all. There's no quotes here of anything that's bullshit. So what? It's a troll talking to himself, which is really lame. It's only that he keeps producing content in mass. Yes, I make video responses, so it would be better if I didn't respond at all. Is that what your argument is? I mean, you seem to make comments every day, so I can just ridicule you for making comments every day. I mean, you're such a duplicitous hypocrite. So you have to keep pointing out ad hominem infinitum. Ad infinitum. Yeah, well, that's exactly how I feel, right? I mean, I can only say, well, can you possibly quote? Can you take the two quotes that are in conflict, where in 1 minute I said something was black and the next minute I said it was white? That clearly didn't happen here. I mean, fuck, you're just an idiot. God, what a waste of time. Yes, you're a waste of time. So now he's talking to himself again, I guess. Go debate him in a video then. Well, could somebody please make a video? Make a physics video explaining some concepts of physics. Explain the single slit, explain the double slit, explain lensing, show the evidence, you know, and give me the opportunity to say, oh yeah, that's really great evidence, or say what is more likely, that's really weak evidence. Thought so. You won't debate him. Okay. You must be suffering from some sort of head injury. Gary is at least 30 times smarter than you. I'm sorry. Reality hurts your feelings. So this is just more, who knows where's the sincere conversation in any of this. Voice of dissent. Yeah, he sure. I mean, it's just this dishonesty alone. Why, you know, what's the credibility of somebody making an argument who has to do all this fake and lying and fraud stuff? Yeah, he sure showed everyone when he... Well, you sure show everyone when you have all these fake accounts. What does that show? That you have integrity? No, it kind of shows that you're a troll. Showed everyone when he clicked the PDF, pointed at random shit. I didn't point at random shit. I pointed that the article did nothing. It's deriving Maxwell's equations is not proving there's waves. Proving photons are waves, or proving that magnetism moves as waves. It doesn't do any of those things, and what I merely stated is the formula actually deals with angles. It doesn't deal with anything called a wave. There's no symbol for wave in a formula. There's lambdas and epsilons and deltas and all kinds of symbols, but there's no symbol for a wave. Because there aren't any. Okay, it's a notion in your head. It's just bullshit. Even physical water waves aren't really waves. They're motion in an up and down direction. They're mediations in pressure over a timed cycle. A wave is not an elemental function. It's an emergent function. The elements of the wave are clearly not analog. They're digital, if you can understand that argument. You're just too stupid to understand that. Pointed at random shit. I pointed at the article and said, look, those are angles. Yeah, I made the point that it's angles in the formula. I've talked to chatbots with more understanding than that. Well, again, where's your understanding? How are you proving there's something called a wave formula? And that there's any obligation that any math actually demonstrates that it has to be a wave causing angles. The angles can be explained by other means besides waves. I mean, the fact that every time you see an on-off pattern, the simplest pattern in the universe, you think it's wave interference, is your bad. You're the dupe. What's telling in all this is that no one here is even countering what's said in the comments. What has been said in the comments? Just innuendo, vague references, you implied some statement that somebody implied something, and I play the video. There's no implication. There's no statement saying what you hear. It's your interpretation. And it's a perverse interpretation. Just making vapid defenses of people and ambiguous claims about feelings without any specifics brought up. I don't know what that means. Clearly, you're the ones that lack any attention to the details or the specifics, notably the difference between a wave function, whatever that might look like, and angles over time. Based off this point, if even doubtable, anyone's even paying attention to the actual arguments. Yeah, I don't know who's doing what. It's hard to judge who's watching and who knows enough to know the difference between a rational argument and irrational. I mean, clearly the audience on YouTube is pretty fucking dumb. I mean, they fall for all kinds of crap. Miles Mathis, Ken Wheeler, dissident douchebag, so I'll keep going down. Alright, voice of dissent. And when you say 30 times smarter, what metric are we using? IQ, speed? You don't specify what exactly you mean. Well, I mean, does it really need to be specified? If somebody says a million times, I'm a million times smarter, what's the difference? Trillion times smarter. It's just a statement of, poetic license, appropriate exaggeration, or where you pull out the number 30. This seems to indicate that you're only putting out rhetoric rather than anything substantial. He's just making a statement that, yes, doesn't have much use, I have to concede. This really isn't about being smarter. It's about being honest, which you can't seem to be doing. You can't have an honest interaction on the internet. You have to have some kind of fake-o-fish, screen names and play these little Weasley games. And the same thing is with this physics argument. Again, just when people can't admit that their evidence is insanely weak for the overstatement, their confidence is way exaggerated. I've pointed out they've jumped the evidence, and I think that's clearly what's taken place here. It's not scientific. Scientists are supposed to be careful, not reckless. That is frustrating, sadly. I'm not insulting you here, I'm just analyzing your post. Yes, you're analyzing the wrong part of it. The basic argument is you people are incapable of making straightforward, honest arguments. Instead have to play these little word games to your discredit, clearly. So much foul language, not an argument, and a glaring sign of low intelligence and poor education. Prove that. I mean, I'm just saying, go ahead and prove that. Prove where you demonstrate there's any correlation between people who use weak language and people who use all the words we got. As Clarence Darrow would say, English is a poor enough means of communication. We should use all the words there are. I think that's a reasonable quote. So anyway, so yeah, what's the point of this mush? So I guess I'll wait till we see if there's more comments by these assholes before I block them. Alright, so flock of fish. No, retard. There's very specific conditions that need to be engineered for a laser to work. Well, clearly Einstein wasn't talking about any specific laser designs. Pirot's reference was that Einstein, he didn't say Einstein invented the laser. He made the point that Einstein predicted, quote unquote. And again, I would argue that I think a careful analysis of maybe even Franklin or Newton, you might find predictions like that. So, not very interesting. that isn't just sticking in a few lenses. So again, here's a Wikipedia article that has nothing to do with the Piro's reference, which was that Einstein used somehow of quantum mechanics to predict lasers. And I just made the point, you didn't have to have any understanding of quantum mechanics to predict that someday they might be able to laser light, just like you didn't need Maxwell to speculate on the existence of light at other frequencies. In other words, that something like radio waves would exist. The trick was figuring out how to receive them, making a detector for those. And it took Hertz 7 years to do that. Even though he was pretty confident they existed, it still took him 7 years to figure out how to detect them. Hyperfine splitting, mode locking, transverse modes are all examples of very specific phenomena that are outcomes of very specific predictions. And again, you don't need to use any of those words to make a pulse laser. So again, it's just this way, this jargon, they've veiled simple concepts in. And so clearly a pulse laser is basically taking advantage of the fact that you can release all the light. You can, like a capacitor, you can store it and release all of it at once. So you get light that's going to be more collimated. You don't need any of these. You don't need to use words like tunneling or any of this other jargon to understand it conceptually. Just like the tunneling microscope is nothing fancier than a charge detector. That's all it's doing. It's detecting charge, the strength of charge, the distance between an electron and another electron. Okay. It's clear this is all fruitless. However, yes, it is fruitless to have a conversation with fanatics. You're a fanatic. You don't care that the evidence you have for your theory is weak, and you are completely closed-minded to recognizing that there could be other explanations that are much more simple and physical, because you want the universe to be full of unicorn magic. Clearly. It's clear this is all fruitless. However, seeing just how pitiful you tried to review that PDF, I didn't review it. It was just a derivation of Maxwell's equations. I've seen 4 million of those. That's nothing. There's nothing new in there at all. And that doesn't demonstrate any necessity to believe the actual elemental function has anything to do with a wave. And Maxwell himself, in his own interpretation, describes the force as radial. It's rays of force. I mean, he never uses those words, but that's what it is. That PDF about the wave equation where you pointed at random symbols and said, look, those are all, I don't know, Diaz. These are all angles. I'm saying the formula has angles in it. And how you determine those angles is your option. Just as you can believe that radar signals are photons interfering, or you can believe the same math predicts jamming and produces jamming. The same exact math will get you both. So it's a matter of your interpretation, what you think causes the effect. We all agree on what variables are involved. Again, I'm pointing out, there's nothing in the Maxwell variables. There's no wave in the variables. The wave is in your interpretation of the variables and their consequences. But you don't have to create waves to do the math. Exactly the kind of entertainment expected from the run-of-the-mill retard. So just useless drivel. It's the concept of natural light that lenses fuckface. Don't know what that means. It's the concept of natural light and lenses fuckface. The concept of a laser is just the idea of capturing photons, reflecting them in a trap. That idea, okay, doesn't require any knowledge of quantum mechanics. So mode locking is easily explained by his model. Mode locking wasn't explained by Einstein's prediction that lasers were possible. So, again, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with any notion of understanding what takes place when you're exciting atoms to produce photons. And what you call mode locking, somebody else could rationally call, let's call it tension locking. So instead of mode locking, it's tension locking. So that is, you pressurize all the atoms so all the electrons end up in the same position, so they're all capable of producing a photon from the same relative position from the lasing stream. Lots of explanations like that. So again, it's just your interpretation of the mechanism. The mechanism is simple. Electrons produce photons, and frankly, electricity is photons. It's the same energy. God, you are stupid, which again is just useless mush. But I would say, I am rubber, you're glue. The shoe fits and such. Oh shit, sorry, I should have given it more thought. It's just the concept of natural light and lensing that solves everything. Ha ha. So again, why don't you show me the paper where Einstein predicted mode locking as a way of pulsing lasers? No, he didn't do any of that, so I don't know what this crap is. So I think it's time we block this guy, but we'll see if there's anything else. No, there's nothing else, so I can't block him. Just useless fake people. Fake bullshit. Okay, Tin Impeller, we'll get rid of him. And, alright, so what we got left? Agree, Wheeler is a drama queen with no scientific backup, and he also doesn't know a lot about cameras either. Well, he clearly owns enough, so he must know something. He can take them apart, so I'll give him some credit. But yeah, clearly he has no clue how the universe works, in the sense that he thinks there's all kinds of things doing all kinds of motion that doesn't have there's nothing guiding it. So you can have all kinds of tornadoes and all kinds of hyperboloids, and there's no force creating any of that movement. Alright, Piro. Never mind. Fuck off. I won't answer the questions. I mean, I knew you weren't going to answer them because you don't have answers. You have no idea. You don't know. You're probably just as confused. You look at the interferometer and you say, I don't know. Is it single photons? Is it individual photons? I don't know. So I don't think you have an answer. Your physics doesn't have an answer. You don't have an answer. You don't even have a wild guess. And so I figured you weren't going to answer the question, so this evasion is obvious. If you had something to defend, you would defend it. How I talk or what I say, again, I've never been intimidated by somebody who says hateful things about me. I mean, that makes it almost more fun to humiliate them, to point out what assholes they are. So if somebody made an argument to me and they made it in a hostile way, that would make it even more fun for me to show how they're wrong. And so your lack of courage here is just, you're just proving my point. You don't make any physics videos because you really don't know any physics. It's just a fact. You have a superficial understanding, and that's it. And you really can't talk in depth about your own beliefs and theory because you don't understand it with any depth. And so there weren't going to be any videos. totally uninteresting. I've been waiting for months for you to make a physics video. You just don't make any, so you're useless to me. You don't make any physics content. You just make accusations. You don't defend it with any substance. Alright, if you can't tell I was saying I would answer the questions. No, I could tell you, I could hear you saying you would answer a question, but it was already always demonstrated that your answers were going to be vacuous. You thought you answered the double slit experiment by pointing out something I already knew and I already stated in my video. How is that answering the question? You evaded the question. You said, I'll answer your other questions, as if you had already answered a question. You hadn't touched the question. You hadn't even glanced at it. You hadn't rubbed up against it in any kind of way at all. You know, it was like your quantum mechanics. It was just spooky action at a very long distance from anything called the real question. You never came close to the real question. Answer the questions and give you a written answer. Well, I don't give a shit about any kind of written answer. I'm really interested in people defending their bullshit. And I think video is a much better way, or audio would be a much better way to do that. To provide more than one example, to do a little elaborating. I mean, I don't think you can really give me a written answer to any of these questions. But go ahead and try, but yeah, I know, you couldn't even do that. And you did give a written answer, of 1-2 sentences on the double slit experiment, and it was absolute crap, a regurgitation of what I'd already stated. Let's see, and give you a written answer to things QM predicted. Yeah, well, again, there's no predictions. The formulas predicted nothing. So again, it's just absolute nonsense to say they ever predicted anything. They never predicted anything. You know, Heisenberg never predicted anything. Huygens doesn't predict anything. I mean, they're statements about reality, and they're wrong. And I can show all the circumstances where they fail, where what they predict isn't the outcome. The outcome isn't consistent with their, with what you have defined as the truth, what should be. What should be, what is and what should be don't match. And then you invent all kinds of wacky shit, just like your silly gravitational theories, where you don't understand galaxies aren't solar systems and they don't work the same way. And therefore you think you need to create some dark matter to make things move faster. I mean, it's just silly and stupid. Or slower in this case. You're not able to follow, which is just absolute nonsense. Clearly I'm demonstrating a willingness to be interrogated, and I would just like the same opportunity to do some interrogating. And clearly it's you who can't stand up to that process. You're the coward. You've shot your big fat mouth off. You've said a lot of crap. You've made a lot of derogatory statements. You've done plenty of insulting, and you can't take it in return. Yeah, but you're a pussy. You're asking for information you don't want. No, I'm asking for information I know you don't have. It's that simple. Your professional physicists can't answer the questions. They have to make up fairy tales about experiments that have never even taken place to defend their nonsense. You don't have answers to these questions because you've never thought about it, because you never gave a shit about the actual science. You've never cared about the quality of the evidence. Oh, you're so horny, you know, to get to the vagina that you never noticed that the bitch has, you know, 4 noses and, you know, earwax coming out of her eyes. You're just clueless. Let's see. You're asking for information you don't want, and will curse at me in. Oh, you're afraid of being cursed at. Oh, you're sensitive. Oh, and will curse at me in proportion to how hard it is to ignore. What? Again, there's nothing to ignore except the fact that you cannot make an honest argument, and clearly when you've been challenged to provide evidence, your evidence has been dishonest. Again, your silly wave tank crap that was just absolute bullshit. You know, attempting to defend some notion that in waves, in water waves, single slits create diffraction when they don't. Continue to think waves are magic. No, I don't think they're magic. I think they're just nonsense. I think for anyone to think that photons are a wave, you've made a critical, stupid error. Photons are quanta. They're digital. They're not mushy at all. They're the most reliable thing in the universe. Is the energy that makes up the universe. That's why the universe is so consistent. That's why it doesn't do anything spontaneous. Is because of the reliability of these little bits of force. And you idiots because you don't understand that the universe has this stuff called matter in it, and that the matter interacts with the force. And that yes, the force can do some silly things now and then, but it's only doing it because the matter made it do it. And you're too stupid to realize how obvious that is. That's where the facts point. Alright, so in the spam folder we have Lesage is obsolete. So another fake account with fake bullshit. You can actually watch with your own two eyeballs the Michelson-Morley experiment being performed without a half-silvered mirror. Fine, but isn't the point to analyze the original experiment that caused all this huff and puff? It's the experiment they think that proves something, about ether bullshit. So isn't that the experiment to analyze? So how does it change my argument any? And any other beam splitter you have, again, I can find you the flaw in it. I can show you where it's not creating two equal beams. So just because you're not using a half-silvered mirror doesn't mean you're not using some sort of diffraction medium. You're using the fact that light transitioning from one substance to another substance is what's causing the splitting of the beam. And to take advantage of that usually means that you are diverging the light. Does that matter to you? Again, I don't know in what context it's supposed to matter to me. I mean, the point is if Michelson-Morley was theoretically wrong-headed, isn't that an important thing to understand, that if there aren't two equal beams of light, isn't the whole validity of the experiment put in doubt? Does that matter to you? So the fact that the experiment had a fundamental flaw in it doesn't matter to you? So if I could prove that, like, say, for example, photons traveling through empty space hit hydrogen atoms, and when they hit the hydrogen atoms, they're transmitted by the hydrogen atom, and it causes a little tiny bit of redshift because of the transmission through the atom, and the atom has momentum, and the momentum's likely to be opposing the momentum of the light. So the light's moving this way, it's going to hit more hydrogen atoms moving this towards it than away from it, and therefore over time it's going to end up getting redshifted by just hitting hydrogen atoms. Now if that was proven to be a valid theoretical premise, in the sense that we had a satellite that proved that light going from here to Pluto, let's say, did in fact get redshifted by a tiny amount based on how many hydrogen atoms it hit. Now, wouldn't that put the whole theory of universal expansion in doubt? So isn't it really important if you can find flaws in fundamental experiments, idiot? You don't think that's important? Then bad on you. Does it matter that people can reflect light in a teleprompter? So what is this teleprompter thing? How is reflecting light off a mirror or a teleprompter have anything to do with diffraction gradients and divergence of light? How is this the same subject? I don't understand. And not have it deflect all over the place. Diffract all over the place. So again, I just don't understand. What's your point? How are the two subjects the same subject? Does it matter to you that you can see water waves diffracting in a ripple tank? No, you can't. Not if you put the waves in at the regular speed. Now, if you put noisy waves in, that is, waves that are moving, that is, the source is moving faster than the speed the wave can propagate through the medium, just like with sound, if you do that, you'll get distortions in the waves. You'll get harmonics and all kinds of stuff. So if you put diffracted light, broken waves, into the tank, into the slit, yeah, you'll get diffraction out. So you put diffraction in, you get diffraction out. But if you put a plain wave in to a single slit, there's no diffraction. So that's just nonsense. With diffraction lines. So he says it with diffraction lines. He says it as if it's the truth. So where's your evidence that that's the truth? And what's your theory for why it's true? How does it happen exactly? How does a plain water wave going through a single slit diffract? I mean diffract in the sense of create pattern, on, off. Does it matter that the double and single slit patterns are, by your admission, different? It's not an admission, it's my assertion. So again, I'm not the one who have to admit something. I'm the one asking you. You have a wave theory. You say this is caused by waves. You use waves as an analogy and say, look at the water waves in two slits. This pattern matches that. Well, I'm demonstrating how it doesn't match, in the sense that it's got another extra component. I'm asking you to explain how wave theory accounts for that extra component. What's your explanation? But then 5 minutes later claim that the double slit experiment added nothing to our knowledge. No, I said Young's experiment added nothing to our knowledge. Newton had already done the small aperture and the single hair. So he'd already covered the two bases. He already covered surfaces separated by distance with nothing between them, and surfaces on the side of an impediment. So he'd both basically covered all the bases. So there was nothing remarkable about Young's experiment. So again, this is their lie. They can't accurately quote me. They have to distort what I've said. Claim that the double slit experiment added nothing to our knowledge because Newton already knew about Newton's rings, question mark. Well, it's true. He had already discovered the interference pattern, quote unquote, the pattern. All right? So what has changed? What did Young add to that? What knowledge did Young have that Newton didn't? What knowledge of cause did Young have that Newton had? There's none. Does it matter that you expect people to drop a 500-year-old empirical body of knowledge? Does it matter that you expect people to drop a 500-year-old empirical body of knowledge? So that's just another lie. You're the one saying that Newton's wrong. You're the ones pretending that physical physics was wrong-headed, that they should have known from the beginning that it was mushy, faggoty, wavy bullshit physics. You're the one trying to undo the hard evidence. Empirical body of knowledge and adopt a simple toy model. Again, it's not a toy. Mock gravity is a real thing. It works. It's just a fact that it satisfies all the conditions, that it explains why there's an inverse square law. You don't have a force, idiots. You don't have mechanism for any of your events. Your events are all without mechanism, without energy, without mechanism. So your model isn't even a toy model. Yours is an imaginary model full of pixies and fairies. Where everything is made, it's just spooky, frickin' poofy action at a distance. Poofy action at a distance. Where everything is made of photons and bounce perpendicular. Well, again, that's not an accurate paraphrase of the model. And yes, it's a very simple diagram and it works. That's just the fact. The fact is it explains why there's charge. Again, all I can do is say, look, go ahead, critique the videos in the playlist. Go to the subject videos and go ahead and point out how my model of magnetism can't be right, when it perfectly explains why the phenomena of attraction and repulsion exist. No, of course not. Whatever. For those things to matter would require a cold, hard, rational, scientific mindset, and that's something you obviously don't have. Again, post me the link to your video that explains magnetism. Show me a physicist explaining magnetism, the force of magnetism, where it comes from, how it works, what causes it. Show me one video doing that. Post me the link to your good physics. Post me any link to any subject, any good physics at all. This is all crap on the subject of magnetism especially, but gravity secondarily. Post me your link to the good physics. Show me it so I can go there and I'll point out just how bad it is, as I've done in the past. Scientific mindset. So you think it's a scientific mindset to keep pretending your evidence is complete and voluminous when it's really horribly incomplete and as thin could be. And you think that's the scientific mindset, is jumping the evidence, never repeating the experiments. And that's something you obviously don't have because of some deep-seated emotional issue. And obviously you have some sort of perverse whatever, you like to sniff anuses of nerdy mathematicians. You have a math anus fetish. You're pathetic. You're many times more pathetic. You can't even manage to have a real interaction. You're such a coward. You can't show your face, can't use your voice, can't do a single honest thing. You're such a pathetic coward. Your philosophy is pathetic, your science is pathetic, and again, your argument is double pathetic. Pathetic, like Huygens, infinitesimally voluminous patheticnesses. You don't care about free speech. What's the argument? Who's taken away your free speech? You can make a YouTube account. I can't stop you. You could make videos, but you're too much of a coward to make a video. You don't care whether your system gets scrutinized the way a real scientific theory gets scrutinized. So again, real just means you say what we want to hear. And you have to, if you're going to tell me you're being honest and saying, oh yeah, our system honestly pays attention to people who disagree with us. Yeah, no, we know it doesn't. You don't preach what they want to hear, then they're not going to let you preach. And that's obvious from the way you block people. Well, it's right here for people to see. And as I pointed out, if you can't make an honest statement, if you're going to lie about me, I have no obligation to leave your lies up on my boards. I have no obligation to make to post on every one of your silly comments a response comment saying you're a liar. I don't have any obligation to do any of that stuff. You're the one who can't play with any kind of civilized, and so why should I treat you as if you are? Again, I have no expectation I could talk this trash on Professor Lewin's video. Why do you think you have a right to do it here? Yeah. You realize you block like 5 people in every one of these stupid videos, don't you? Yes, I'm doing it right here publicly. Everybody can see me doing it. I'm blocking you quite publicly and pointing out how, yeah, I really don't have any obligation to engage with people who can't do this civil thing. No obligation at all. Maybe you should look in the mirror and ask yourself what you're really on about. You know, I have full confidence in what I'm saying. I would stake my guts on it, my life, however you want to do it. Like I said, if I'm wrong, you could gut me in the street. I'm that confident that I'm right. What are you putting on the table, coward? Oh, that's right, nothing. You despicable coward. So, I mean, like I said, he has the opportunity to post me links to this brilliant physics that's out there. So go ahead, post me the link to the well done two-slit experiment video, the one that explains it the right way. Go ahead. You can't do it, and you won't do it, but you can't do it. That's the truth. Your evidence sucks. Your theory sucks. And all you people are about is hype and fanaticism. If you had the argument, you would make it. It's that simple. I didn't run away like when I was making arguments about atheism. I mean, it was almost fun when a stupid Christian would say stupid things. It just made it so much easier to point out how they're wrong and to do it with evidence. Where's your evidenced argument? Oh, that's right, you don't have one. All you have is lies, misparaphrases, innuendos, nothing real, nothing substantive, nothing hard, no real evidence. You're just a shyster in court, you know, trying to make people look at the guy's twitchy mustache and say, oh, he must be guilty, he has a twitchy mustache. That's how weak your arguments are. Alright, so I think I've disposed of this round of rubbish. See if there's anything new. It really is nothing on the internet. There's just nothing. And you can't even do searches anymore because, you know, half the videos come up with people speaking, you know, Hindi. It really is getting to a point where who cares? So anyway, okay, I give up. It's a plasmoid ring. Wink, or whatever. This whole stupid fake photograph. Alright, dark matter equals proof of dark matter. So see, look, that's just really brilliant, right? No dark matter equals proof of dark matter. That's how circular the reasoning's getting. So we don't have any kind of interesting physics here. Nope. Nothing. Okay. So, till the next time, and such, and so forth, and whatnot. Yeah, I'm really tired again still. There's just so much to do. Finally got the pod unpacked, so get it out of here, but I gotta still find room for all my stuff in limited space, which is a challenge. So anyway, I didn't take a lot of stuff. I forgot a lot of stuff. Kind of sucks. But anyway, till the next time, and such, so forth and whatnot. What am I looking for? I won't bother looking. I'll just hit this.